Greetings, welcome, Swagatham, Vanakkam. In this video, I want to take up for discussion a question which, to my great surprise, is not being addressed by anyone in this country. Rather, a great credit is being quite erroneously ascribed to a young man called Abhijit DIPKE. Everyone says that Abhijit is the founder of the Cockroach Janata Party movement. I have serious disagreements with that completely unjustifiable, baseless, senseless assumption. And in this video, I'll try to explain why I take that stand and who I consider to be the legitimate, incontestably authentic founder of the Cockroach Janata Party movement. Let me state it right at the outset. For the life of me, I cannot understand how anyone with a modicum of sense can consider Abhijit DIPKE as the founder of this movement. What is the obvious fact? Abhijit was not even in this country. He was in the United States of America doing some course or the other. And he came across a statement made by the Chief Justice of India. And he had a satirical intention. So he just floated the idea without the slightest sense of what it was going to provoke or what consequences would emanate from it. And he simply posted this. And at the time of doing so, he didn't have the foggiest idea that this would turn into a mass movement involving the youth of India. So, anyone with any sense of fact would think not twice but 10 times before unthinkingly acknowledging Abhijit DIPKE as the founder of the Cockroach Janata Party movement. If the redoubtable Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant, had not made this observation with the ponderous gravity that is associated with the office that he adorns as the Chief Justice of India, that the unemployed youth of India are like cockroaches, they are mere parasites. And this observation he made while hearing a case which pertained to the problem of people without adequate qualifications entering various professions, particularly journalism, or becoming rights activists, etc. And if my memory serves me right, he said it on the 15th of May, 2026. Now, let's consider for a moment what the Chief Justice of India said and the context in which he said it. I'm not a legal expert, so please forgive me if my analysis and the stand I take is not 100% puritanically correct. The function of a judge, whether he is the Chief Justice of India or the last judge in India, if the procedural integrity of the judicial system is valued, it is not the function of a judge to comment on the general situation in this country. Judges are called upon only to determine the merit of the case that is presented to them. They're not there to issue omnibus comments on what's happening in this country. That is not the scope of the case at all. When a judge finally issues the verdict, he limits himself strictly to the prayers made. I don't think in the case that was being considered by the Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant, the question raised was whether or not the youth of India, the unemployed youth of India, cockroaches or not. That was not the issue. The judge had absolutely no need to issue this blanket condemnation. Very negative, contemptuous, derisive, dismissive opinion, damning opinion on the youth of India. He went far beyond the scope of his responsibility. Of that, I don't have the slightest doubt. And it is that entrepreneurial sweep of Justice Suryakant that provided the impetus for the movement. I don't think any other judge here in this matter would have issued such a statement. And if Justice Suryakant hadn't made that observation, there would not have been Cockroach Janata Party. Therefore, I'm absolutely convinced that this great credit should not be erroneously ascribed to Abhijit DIPKE, but credit should be given where it is due, and that is Justice Suryakant, the 53rd Chief Justice of India. Without him, this development simply would not have happened. There are reasons for it. I'm now going to share some of my further thoughts. First of all, let us consider the significance of the cockroach metaphor. It's a very significant thing. I'm amazed that the Chief Justice of India actually thought up this cockroach metaphor. But I'm sure all the same that at the time of making the statement, he did it impulsively. He got carried away by the situation. Probably he was highly exaggerated. He spoke in a state of irritation. Whatever it be, the idea of comparing the unemployed youth of India to cockroaches is a wildly far-fetched idea, but it served a great purpose. It has a tremendous merit of which Justice Suryakant, I'm pretty sure, was unaware at the time of making that statement. And it is this significance that I request you to understand, and I'm going to share my insights or my line of thinking in this regard. You see, what the youth of India lacked, what India as a whole lacks, is one unifying metaphor. Because what usually happens, the real familiar playbook of the BJP is, when anything that is inconvenient to them comes up, they immediately damn it by playing the divisive game. Hindu against Muslim, youth against the rest, and so on and so forth. But when the youth of India are compared to or even called cockroaches, cockroach does not lend itself to any divisive debate. It completely transcends all discriminative labels. So for the first time, the youth of India got something on which they can actually crystallize and consolidate their unity, a unity that cannot be attacked by the BJP and its spokespersons using their familiar playbook. And that is the greatest contribution Justice Suryakant has made to the youth of India, and they need to be grateful to him. I'm afraid they are not. Nobody else could have done this service to them. So the idea of being cockroach or cockroaches is a tremendous idea because it transcends all divisive labels. Cockroaches are neither Muslims nor Hindus nor Christians, nor do they belong to any other religion. Cockroaches are not regionally labeled limited. They're not limited by anything. It is a category that transcends all discriminative labels. That is exactly what the youth of India wanted. So every discontented youth in India, the vast majority of India, are discontented, frustrated, disenchanted. They're in a state of despair. They could just latch on to it. And not only that, this idea of their being reduced to cockroaches rang a very powerful, loud bell in their consciousness, because in the context in which they are living and the struggles to which they are now subjected, the hopelessness that is now invading them, everything together creates a context in which young people are losing a sense of self-worth. So when the Chief Justice of India compares young people to cockroaches, suddenly they say, that's what we have become. That is what we have become. And suddenly it's like a volcano erupting. That's the power of the contribution Justice Suryakant has made. Knowingly, unknowingly, that's up to you. But I cannot overlook the significance of the great contribution, the great favor he has done to the youth of India. So that's the first thing. The tremendous and incomparable gift of an identity which transcends all discriminative labels or labels of discrimination, distinction, etc. Second, this metaphor has activated in every young person in this country, including those who are employed, a very clear and hurting awareness about their growing insignificance. Prior to this, every individual was in a state of vague uneasiness. And we know that vague awareness is powerless, is as good as not having it. When suddenly someone activates it, it begins to reverberate and it begins to make you feel desperate. That's the power of naming. So the justice, the redoubtable justice, the venerable judge, named the vague frustration, disenchantment, the desperation that was lying dormant in the minds of the millions of young people in India. Let's take an illustration to understand this. Think of the French Revolution. Even before the revolution began, the vast majority of the people in France realized that their society was riddled with inequality and that their freedoms were seriously compromised and they were living in a state of alienation. But when the protagonists of the revolution created a slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity, the people as a whole moved from a vague awareness to concrete, cutting awareness, which then unleashes power. That is exactly what, that's a historical function that one man alone, Justice Suryakant, has performed in this context. In comparison to that, DIPKE is nothing, not even a bubble. He's a mere accident. So that's the second point I want to make. So Justice Suryakant has made the youth of India aware of their growing insignificance in the sharpest way possible. Nobody could have done it better than him. And to that extent, he deserves our applause. Now, what is the most widespread reality in India? The widespread reality in India is that the people don't matter. One man matters, maybe two men matter. There is something like a cabinet. By the way, the greatest gainer from this Cockroach Janata Party movement is Dharmendra Pradhan, because today he is a household name. If a week ago you had sort of sampled 1,000 young people of India and asked them, who is Dharmendra Pradhan? Not even 50 people have answered it. Today everyone knows. So Dharmendra Pradhan has become a celebrity, whereas he was a very vague presence as far as the people are concerned. I am not talking about the internal situation of the BJP. In terms of public perception, he was a very vague, powerless, harmless kind of a or a neutral kind of a situation. Today, he has become a national figure. So, the kind of situation that was being developed in this country in the last 12 years is characterized mainly by the growing insignificance of the people, and particularly the growing insignificance of the youth. And that is precisely what the Chief Justice of India articulated. If what he said was not true, it would not have had this effect. So what he said is absolutely true. Other than the rich and the powerful, nobody matters in this country. For rhetorical effect, Modi may say, my 145 crore people, but that's only on his lips. On the ground, the vast majority of the people don't matter. They are treated, they are of the state. And this state of the growing insignificance of the people is further aggravated by the collapse, one after the other, of the most important democratic institutions in this country, on which list even the legal system also figures. That is the problem. So the Chief Justice said this. The youth of India perceived this also in the context of a hidden connection. And I don't want to say anything more about it. So when democratic institutions collapse or they are captured, the sense of confidence and the sense of relatedness of the citizens to the country gets seriously compromised, and alienation intensifies. People get increasingly, or at least people feel increasingly alienated. What has happened, I dare say, the last 12 years is the unprecedented intensification of alienation in various pockets. And you don't have to be a particularly wise man to realize that increasing alienation among the people of a country does not do that country any good. Then why is that being done? Well, that's a question I leave with you. But I certainly need to say that this overall ambience, this overall climate of opinion in which people feel increasingly alienated and increasingly sucked dry of their significance, certainly made the statement of the Chief Justice resound in a thunderous manner throughout the country and beyond. And it's ironic that the impetus for the movement therefore came from beyond our borders, from the United States of America, though it is through an Indian youth. So, this collapse of the democratic institutions becomes even more sinister when people look at it in light of the fact that India is steadily moving towards a one-party rule. Various opposition parties are being one after the other systematically decimated. Here I don't have to go into those details. The latest, of course, is Trinamool Congress, the most formidable opponent of BJP. And what has happened to that party and how the whole thing has been engineered, I don't have to say. So the common man actually feels this very powerfully, very acutely. And unfortunately for the BJP, the common man in India is wise enough to realize that one-party rule in democracy is de facto dictatorship. And in a dictatorship, other than the dictator and the cabals around him, everybody feels helpless and insignificant. And nobody likes it, particularly the youth. Now, this is further aggravated by the growing inability or growing inefficiency of the opposition parties in addressing issues that really hurt the people of India. For example, think of demonetization. That's the one issue that every opposition party should have taken up with utmost seriousness. Some feeble attempts were made to resist it, but to no avail. Issues one after the other came and went. So the people of India have come to the conclusion that it is in vain that you look up to the opposition parties. For example, think of the farmers' movement, farmers' protest. They do not allow the political parties to come anywhere near them because people are really disenchanted with the opposition parties for the good reason that these parties are proving ineffectual, powerless to take up their problems and resolve them. And these parties are fighting among themselves rather than addressing the real life issues of the people. All these things contribute towards creating a national ambience in which young people feel utterly disenchanted, frustrated, and hopeless. And then, of course, aggravating everything is the unemployment situation. In the video I shared with you yesterday, I dealt with it, so therefore I will not. But that's the most important factor to be considered. You burn the midnight oil. You make huge investment in your studies. After all that, if you are to stand in a long and interminable queue for a job that is simply not there, then surely you will get frustrated. Our leaders talk about GDP, growth in terms of GDP. Nobody talks about growth in terms of employment generation. Have you noticed this? Has our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, or any of his cabinet ministers, or any of the BJP spokespersons ever spoken of the development of India in terms of employment generation? No one. It's very convenient to talk about GDP numbers. It doesn't mean that there is even a marginal improvement in the employment situation. Whereas that is the one thing that really matters to the youth of India. So they are watching everything and they are sinking more and more into this state of helplessness, disenchantment, frustration. And to add insult to injury, they are called cockroaches. The system reduces to this pathetic, desperate state of utter insignificance and hopelessness, and then they're punished a second time by the label of being cockroaches stuck on their forehead. That is precisely what triggered this huge mammoth reaction, which now engulfs the whole of India. Now, given all this, the young people realized in a flash that their problems will not be solved in the normal routine manner. After all, by available evidence, paper leaks have happened 152 times the last 10 years. There was no intention anywhere to rectify the problem. In fact, the Radhakrishnan committee made very significant, meaningful recommendations, none of which has been implemented, because therefore it's absolutely clear that the will to reform the system is not there. Why? Because systematizing, institutionalizing corruption is the most attractive option, because it maximizes the gain through corruption. So the young people knew that there is not even a ghost of a chance that the problems will be solved and the maladies rectified in the routine manner. And it is this desperation that broke the spell of fear. Over the last 10, 12 years, this whole nation has been gripped by the spell of fear. Nobody uttered a word. Everybody was very guarded. Suddenly the whole thing is gone. So the greatest loss that the BJP has suffered is the pinprick that burst the balloon of the fear that had enveloped the whole Indian subcontinent. And all of this, and that is a remarkable thing, the whole thing goes back to just one person. It is not Abhijit DIPKE. It is our Honorable Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant. Therefore, I reiterate my conviction that the real founder of the Cockroach Janata Party movement, it's not a party, it's only a movement, is not Abhijit DIPKE, it is Justice Suryakanth. The young people of India must realize this and remain forever grateful to him. Whether it is done deliberately, consciously, in full awareness that is going in this direction, I don't know. But this is certainly what has happened. And any objective, dispassionate, factual analysis will make you come to a conclusion to which I have arrived. The youth of India owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to Justice Suryakanth. Long live Justice Suryakanth. Jai Hind.